All right, for the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 8, Class 8 on May 4th, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. And so I invite you to grow this wish into a longing, and that longing into an intention, and that intention into a determination if you feel you're ready. Then turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it all to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. So thank you everyone for your papers. Okay, there we go. So last class was awful. And so I'm not going to do the quiz. You know. And so this next class, Geshe said, let's do a fun class. Let's do a description of time and space. But to be completely honest with you, I am going to bore you to tears. And I can't figure out any other way to deliver the details of this class without boring you to tears. And please forgive me. I'll try to, I don't know, maybe I'll tell a joke or a story or something. I don't know. But it's Abhidharma Kosha. And we're in the 3rd chapter. And we are studying about, technically we're studying about the 4 Arya truths and the truth of suffering. And the way he teaches us that is he tells us all the details about our existing world. So here's the details. Geshe called it a class on time and space, but it's a class on the cycles of the cycles of existence, I guess. Not that there's a cycle of non-existence ever, but you'll see what I mean. So we've probably heard the term a kalpa. It's a Tibetan term for a period of time. And mostly where we hear the term kalpa actually is in the idea of how long it takes to reach Buddhahood once we actually have our genuine bodhicitta, our actual wish to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. They say from that moment, it takes 3 countless great eons to gather the virtue necessary to make that transformation. And so 3 countless great eons. An eon in Tibetan is a kalpa. So 3 countless great kalpas. It has a particular name for that, and and like we would want that to be able to be described in and how many years is that? And the thing is, this idea of kalpa isn't
Esta idea
determined
de capa
by, wait, I'm hearing you. Isn't determined. I'm still hearing. Isn't determined by, yeah, isn't determined by the number of times Earth goes around the sun, but it's determined by the period of time it takes for certain things to happen. So it's more like the way geological time is measured. I don't know anything about those, but there's like the Pleistocene age, and in retrospect, they can say it was however trillion years, but in order to establish it to be that number of trillion years, this thing had to have happened, all of this happened, and then this had to happen because it ended there. And the time it took for all that to happen ends up being this particular time called the Pleistocene eon or era or whatever it is. Just for trying to get this idea that when we're speaking of time from Abhidharma Kosha, we're not counting rotations around the sun as 1 year. That is 1 year in Abhidharma Kosha, whatever they call the year. But it's not a certain number of years that always makes up a kalpa. Do you got it? So some kalpas are this many years and other kalpas are that many years, and it's still one kalpa, you see, because it's established by certain events. So there are many kinds of kalpas, but we're going to talk about these 4 main ones that have to do with this cycle of existence, which is samsara. And in these 4 kinds of kalpa are the Jikpe kalpa, here it is, Chakpe kalpa, Nepe kalpa, and Kalchen. Then within those, there's something called the Barkel and a Kalpa Songpo. So these are the things we're going to be talking about. Jikpe Kalpa means the eon of destruction. Chakpe Kalpa means the eon of formation. Nepe Kalpa is the eon of continuation. And Kalchen is something called a great eon. So the 3 eon of destruction, eon of formation, and eon of continuation, these are happening in a cycle for any given existing planet. We're speaking more specifically about our Earth planet, which is that southern continent of the 37 pile mandala explanation. We'll get back to that. So Jikpe Kalpa, the eon of destruction, is the period of time that it takes for fourth, the Jigpe Kalpa is the time period marked by four things happening at one time. Like at the beginning of this era, these four things happen. And then stuff happens. And then it ends because those four aren't happening anymore. So one of the four things that's happening, not meaning first, second, third, but there are four, they all happen at the same time. One of them is that planet of beings reach the time when no more beings can take birth in that Avicii hell, the Narme hell. What that means is not that nobody has the karma for it, but it means that someone who has projected the next life as an Narme hell being, there's not enough time left in the existence of this world for them to finish off their time in that Avicii hell. So instead, their Bardo being time takes them to an Avicii hell of another world that has enough time for them to wear it out completely. Apparently, our world is coming close to this eon of destruction because apparently there are no more beings going to Avicii hell of our world. I don't know where that came from. I don't know how it's been established. It takes a long, long time for a being to use up their time in Avicii. But still, if the planet doesn't have that much time to go, as determined by other things, right? The beings can't take birth there, they take birth somewhere else. It's not that they don't take a life in Avicii hell, they still do, just somewhere else. Second thing that's happening is that the people who live on that earth, their lifespans reach 80,000 years. But now it's interesting. For this eon of destruction to start, beings have reached a lifespan of 80,000 years. It means their lifespans have dropped to only 80,000 years. Meaning before that, they were much longer. Once whatever happens that lowers their lifespans, lowers to 80,000, that's part of this situation that indicates eon of destruction is happening. So the third thing that characterizes eon of destruction is that the eon of continuation ends. It has to end for the next one to begin, but it's marked as that absolutely has to be clear, I guess, for the eon of destruction to start. And then the fourth thing that happens is the eon of destruction opens. So it seems like redundant to say those last two, but it's an important piece, apparently, right? Abhidharma Kosha does not leave out any detail that's necessary to understand what it's trying to describe. So apparently, once the eon of destruction has opened on a planet, it it means that animals and craving spirits, like, let me start that again. Any being who would have any being who has the projecting karma to put them into an animal realm or a hungry ghost realm, they do their animal or hungry ghost at a different planet. They, for some reason, are no longer taking those manifesting those lifespans on that planet that's in the eon of destruction, which means then that from the human perspective, the animals are disappearing, like extinction is happening. The beings that would have been animals are animals on some other world. We don't see the craving spirit, so we wouldn't know. But apparently the same thing is happening. Then during this time, the humans, they are reaching meditation levels of the first level of the form realm. So they're reaching those causal meditations at the first level of concentration, and apparently spending a lot of time in those levels of meditation, because they are said to increase the number of beings who are having projecting karma, pushing them into the first level of the form realm as a next life, as a rebirth. So somebody reaches the first level of the form realm for the first time and describes to other beings how to do it and how wonderful it is. And so more and more beings are reaching first level of the form realm. And it doesn't mean all of them ripen a next life in the first actual level of the form realm, but many do. So more and more beings are going into the first level of the form realm when they die from that lifetime where they were doing those meditations. And of those in at the same time, beings in the first level of the form realm are apparently reaching even deeper levels of meditation. And so they're filling up the second level of the form realm. And over time, the desire realm is being emptied out of humans because they're all ending up in the first level of the form realm. And then over time, the first level of the form realm gets emptied out and they're all in the second level of the form realm. So the reason I'm describing all of this is it takes a long time for all of this to happen. And all of this is what's happening during this period called the Eon of Destruction. So this process of beings leaving Earth in the sense of dying and not being reborn into one of the various realms of that Earth, it takes what is called 19 intermediate eons. Intermediate is this barcal, like the bardo, the in-between. This is an intermediate kalpa. The process of the earth being emptied of all beings takes 19 intermediate eons happening during this eon of destruction. So then comes the last part of the eon of destruction, the 20th Barcal. And during that time, apparently our sun will supernova, meaning it'll split into two. And it takes, a long time for that to happen. But when it does, it of course makes things wickedly hot, and all the rain stops, and then all the vegetation dries up. The streams, the rivers, the lakes dry up. Then a third sun appears, and it gets even drier. A fourth sun appears, and all the Great Lakes dry up. And then a fifth sun appears, and the outer ocean dries up. The sixth sun appears, and all four continents and Mount Meru burn up into a puff of smoke. And a seventh sun appears, and whatever else might be left, it says the whole physical world is burnt up to include the first level of the form realm. So even the first level of the form realm gets roasted by these seven suns. It describes that this splitting of the suns and like destroying everything by heat is one kind of eon of destruction. That there are also eons of destruction where the process of destruction can happen through water, so through floods, and another one where it can happen through wind. And then there are apparently many kinds of minor eons of destruction where within the eon of destruction, there are these little cycles where people destroy themselves with weapons, but not so completely that there aren't still people left, but just this destruction happening in little cycles and this great big cycle as well. At the end of the eon of destruction, then starts the eon of formation, the Chakpekalpa. The eon of formation is also said to be 20 intermediate eons long. But the 20 intermediate eons, again, does not mean the same period of time, as in the same number of Earth around the sun, but rather it takes 20 of these intermediate eons for this whole process to happen. It's split into 20 mini cycles, I guess. So everything has been burnt up right up to the first level of the form realm. And then what happens at the start of the eon of formation is this energy starts to swirl. And a wind disk forms. And it swirls faster and faster and harder until it solidifies. Does this sound familiar? And then the central mountain forms. And the outer ring of mountains form. And the oceans form, right? Just like that 37-pile mandala that you learned about recently. And then beings start to take birth on this world. And those first beings, we are talking humans here, although in other worlds it would be a world, a human of a different subcontinent. The first beings that show up in a world in its eon of formation show up there born miraculously. They just show up complete. Their bodies are made of light. They shine their own light. The earth that they walk on is solid, but it's such that it's so nutritious. When you need sustenance, you just take a handful of the earth and can eat it. They're extraordinarily virtuous, and they live their lifespans are seme. Here's this word seme. Seme, it actually means se means measure and me means not. So the word means immeasurable. And so when we say their lifetimes are immeasurable, it sounds like we'd be saying, well, they're like infinite. But in Tibetan, the term immeasurable for a time period is a specific number of rotations around the sun for that planet. So it is a name of a specific number of years. Geshe-la said it's somewhere around 10 to the 30th power number of years. He said the way that it's described, he kind of lost track at 10 to the 30th. So it's probably more than that. That's how long a given being's lifetime is if you are amongst the first to show up on a planet. Hard to conceive. Those beings throughout those lifetimes, stuff happens such that they get a bit selfish, right? They're still samsaric beings, but they have an extraordinary level of goodness to be the ones that show up first on a planet. And that goodness, of course, is born of kindness. And they're running on those past kindness seeds, but not with wisdom. And so they're wearing out, and as more and more beings show up, there starts to get, some competition or some tension, and greed starts to set in. So subtle at first, but it grows and grows. The eon of formation ends when the first being takes birth in that planet's Avicii hell. So when the first being has created enough nastiness that one of those seeds projects them into the Avicii hell, that establishes the end of the eon of formation for that whole planet. No, and we learned that what will project a being very next lifetime into a Avicii hell would be one of the 10 non-virtues. Well, that goes directly to hell, but the actual Avicii hell is what was it? I'm blanking out now. Making a schism in the Buddha. One of those. So nastiness has had to grow in order for the end of an eon of formation to happen. While the nastiness is growing, excuse me, as those beings are behaving more and more selfishly, their bodies are getting more and more solidified, let's say. And as a result of the unkindness, their lifespans are dropping. Because of unkindness, those same May lifespans lessen and lessen and lessen until they get down to only 80,000 years. A given being lives, give or take, right? Average 80,000 years. That's when the formation, the eon of formation of that world is over. And the next eon, the eon of continuation begins. Nyepe Kalpa. The eon of continuation also lasts 20 barkals, meaning 20 cycles of something, or the time it takes for these 20 cycles to happen. And it starts at the point where living beings' lifespans are at 80,000 years. Apparently, that Avicii hell is filling up. I don't know if that means it has a final carrying capacity. It sounds like it, but I don't think that's true. Just meaning more and more beings are making the negative karma that can send them there. So as people are doing more and more non-virtue, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, useless speech, divisive speech, jealousy, ill will, wrong view, the lifespans drop, 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 drop until they're actually down around 10 years. And at that point, as it's dropping, the circumstances of the world are getting such that people need to be living in big cities, like crowded in big cities, and there's hardly anyone out in the country. And they say what happens is that, one day there are some people that are out in the country for whatever reason, out on a picnic. And the negativity has come to a culminating point and something happens and all those people in all those cities destroy each other. Bombs are dropped or fires, or who knows what it does. But the people that are out camping, they go back to the city and oh my gosh, everybody's dead, everything's gone. And they wander around right in this terrible funk, in grief and horror. And they run across other people that happen to be out of town when the disaster happened. And they're so grateful, so moved to meet other people that instantly they're so loving of each other and so kind to each other, because they realized that it was the immorality that had grown in the hearts of people in that society that caused this big disaster, and that those that were left had this opportunity to build things back up. And they all say, doggone it, we're gonna live morally. And they share stuff and they take care of each other and they protect each other and they speak kindly, and their lifespans start to increase again. And they slowly increase and increase and increase and increase and increase until they get up to about 80,000 years again. And then that lasts for a period of time, but there's still ignorance happening. And so those 80,000-year-old beings start getting greedy again. And down go the lifespans, all the way back down past 100 to 10. And some similar tragedy happens again. And they start back up again by way of the change of their level of morality. So in this eon of continuation, there's destruction and formation happening again and again, but not as a whole existence, but rather in these mini cycles that are still, mind-bogglingly long time frames when we're thinking of our human time of 1 year, 365 days, and what a lifespan feels like when we're living in a world where our average lifespan is about 74 years old. Which when you're 30, 74 seems like, whoa, that's a really long time. When you're 71, 74 does not seem so far away, but it doesn't mean everybody drops dead at 74. It means half the people die before and half the people die older than that. Back in the 1800s, the average lifespan was 40 years. And they said it wasn't because there were no 50, 60, even 70-year-olds. It was that so many children died that you had to survive childhood in order to make it to 40, 50, 60 years old. So it made the average lifespan only 35 to 40 in those days. But it meant if you did make it to adulthood, you were likely to live to 50 or maybe 60, but not likely 95 or 100. So it does seem like our lifespans are heading upwards, because even if we take away the factor of child mortality, we still see many more people living into their 90s and 100s than we did back then. But they say that to live in a time when people's lifespans are 40, or average lifespan is 40, or average lifespan is 70, or average lifespan is 100, they say that that variation, it all counts to be in the period of time of lifespans of 100. Because lifespans of 10, means 10 human years. When your lifespans are 10, that means half the people are dying before 10, half the people are dying after 10, but not much after 10 years old. It means you're an adult at 10 years old. And it's like, wow, that doesn't make sense. We just don't live much longer than that when our seeds from not protecting life are so puny. So we are now, these humans are currently in the time frame that's called the lifespans of 100. And it's hard from our own perspective to know whether we're going up or we're going down. So this cycle of lifespans coming down to 80,000 and then dropping further down to 10 and then turning and coming back up to 80,000 and then turning and coming back down to 10, that time frame, let me get it more clear. The 80,000 down to 10 is said to be one intermediate eon. The time it takes for that to happen is one intermediate eon. Then another one intermediate eon is followed by the time it takes for the 10-year lifespan to go back up to 80,000 and back down to 10. That's the second bar cow of the eon of continuation. Then it goes back up and back down. That's the third intermediate eon. It does that 19 times. So by the end of the 19th, we're back down at lifespans of 10. And as those beings get kinder and kinder again, and the lifespans go up, go up, go up, go up, go up, they reach the lifespan of 80,000 again, and that starts the eon of destruction, which is like, why? They're getting kinder and kinder. Because they've maxed out their kindness and they're about to start to get selfish again. And that's going to drop them back down. And this time with these other things that happen that trigger the eon of destruction. So let me draw that just to see if it helps it be a little more clear.
If you could remove the share screen so we can see you better, please.
Oh, unshare screen. Good idea. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you.
So let's say that we're at this point, we are at the end of the eon of formation, which means beings' lifespans are at 80,000 years here. They've dropped down to 80,000 years. Now, because they're dropping, they're still going to drop. They're dropping because they're getting more and more selfish. So the 80,000 lifespans are going to drop, 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 drop. Sorry, my wiggly hand. Until they reach down here to the 10 years. And then some disaster happens and there are a few people left and oh my gosh, we've got to be kinder. And up it starts to go again. And it goes up to the 80,000. But then selfishness kicks in and it comes back down to the 10. Then some disaster happens, up it goes again. And back down again. You following me? So here is the first intermediate eon of that particular eon of continuation. Then from here to here is the second one, right? And from here to here is the third one. And it goes on for 19 of those. And when you reach this 10-year lifespan in the 19th intermediate, And people go, oh man, we've got to be kind. Up it goes again until it reaches the 80,000 here. But because this has happened 20 times, this from 10 to 80,000 is a whole barcal. Whereas before it took from down to up to down, this one just from down to up. So the period of time that it takes for this to happen and these to happen is somehow measurable. And when we get to when we go from here, when the lifespans have dropped to 80,000, up and down, up and down, up and down 19 times, and then come back up to the 80,000 for the 20th time. That's the end of the eon of continuation, and we're entering into the eon of destruction that we talked about before. No more beings in Avicii hell. What was the other one? People's lifespan reached that 80,000 years. The eon of continuation ends, the eon of destruction opens. Yikers. So the reason we're talking about all of this is because in this awful drawing, when we get to the lifespan of 100 years, at any one of these sections, my pen's drying up. The lifespans of 100 years is a critical time of the amount of virtue versus selfishness. So that the significance here is, when is it in these cycles that a Buddha will appear in a world? When is it a Buddha can show up in the world? We've learned Buddhas show up in the world when the enough beings there have enough virtue to see one. And that even when there's enough virtue for a Buddha to show up in the world, that one may have enough virtue to see the guy or girl as a Buddha, but the one standing next to them may not. But if there's enough virtue in the minds of beings, a Buddha will show up. So they won't show up when the selfishness is on the rise, on the rise, on the rise, and the lifespans are decreasing. And they don't show up when people's motivation to be kind has gotten so strong because they almost destroyed everything and there's a few that are left. And so now they're being kinder and kinder and kinder and kinder. So they're automatically raising their lifespans. But somewhere along the way, as lifespans are decreasing, we get down to that area where lifespans are around 100, that beings they have enough goodness still to be inclined to a change in their behavior, to be inclined to wisdom, but they have enough suffering that they're calling for help, that they're asking for help. So they say Buddhas only show up in a world when the beings' lifespans are around 100, not because they're at 100, but because their suffering and their goodness, right, is in just the proper amount that makes it such that they could see and benefit from having a Buddha walk amongst them. It's interesting. Mm. Let's take a break here. I told you I was going to bore you to tears. Sorry. Please forgive me. Oh, wait, I was supposed to pause the recording. So there's another kind of kalpa that Geshe-la wants us to know about. It's called the Kalchen. Kalchen means a great eon. And they say a great eon is made up of 80 bar cows. So 80 intermediate eons makes up a Kalchen, a great eon. But when we look at this cycle of eon of destruction, eon of formation, eon of continuation, each one of those lasts 20 parkhouse, but a Kalchen is 80. So it's like, where's the other 20? If, where does the Kalchen come in? What are they trying to describe? And he actually concluded by saying he really wasn't sure. But it clearly is not one of these cycles of destruction, formation, continuation, back to destruction, formation, continuation. It's not saying one of these cycles is a great eon, because there's not enough. There's 20 missing, 20 intermediate things missing. And yet, this term, a great eon, is significant because it comes up in Abhidharma Kosha as part of the explanation for how and when a Buddha does appear in our world. So that comes to us in this phrase, De Trang Me Sumla Sangye. De Trang Me Sumla Sangye. Sumla Sangye. Sorry. Trang Ne Sum means three countless. And De means that. La Sangye means after Buddha. So what this is saying is that a Buddha, it takes three of these countlesses to reach our Buddhahood. Meaning when we finally make our heartfelt determination, when we get our bodhicitta. Now, exactly when we get that takes some explanation. But when we get our bodhicitta, it then is said to take us three countless great eons of virtue gathering, to gather enough virtue to see ourselves as Buddha me and Buddha paradise emanating, right? A being with the four bodies, the four aspects. So 3 countless great eons. The term countless, zhangmei, doesn't mean so much you can't count. It means a specific number, just like mei, immeasurable, meant a specific number. So like we call certain numbers thousands and millions and billions, they call certain numbers immeasurables and countlesses. So countless refers to a number that's whatever the number, followed by 60 zeros. So, right? 1 with 3 zeros is 1,000. With 3 more zeros is 1,000,000. With 3 more zeros is what? 1,000,000,000,000. With 3 more zeros, I'm beyond my English. But how many do we have? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. Keep going until you have 60 in years. You know, who can conceive of that? That's one thing that's called countless. And what we're talking about is countless great eons, which is 20 of these intermediate eons, which are characterized, by some kind of shift, right? It's just mind-boggling how long it takes to gather enough virtue to transform ourselves from suffering me with bodhicitta to a fully enlightened being. It's discouraging to hear it, because it's like, well, then why bother? On the other hand, says Geshe Michael, to be here in a class hearing this means you probably already have like some number of countless eons of virtue already. And we go, no way, but maybe yes way. Give yourself credit for hearing a class that's describing eons and etc., to come to recognize what it actually takes to transform ourselves and our world from suffering being to no suffering. None. For anyone, for you in your world. Okay. So your homework question is going to ask, what is it that makes a Buddha appear in our world? Meaning your Buddha appear in your world. Or what did the one who is the Buddha appearing in our world have to do to become the Buddha? That's different than appearing in our world. Appearing to themselves as a Buddha is one thing. So a Buddha occurs from the accumulation of merit and wisdom for 3 countless great eons, which would be 10 with 59 zeros, or 1 with 60 zeros, and 3 times that for you mathematicians, right? 3 times 10 to the 60th years. No, not years. Countless great eons of years. Huge, huge period of time. But more importantly, says Geshe Michael, it doesn't have to take that long. We've heard reach the direct perception of emptiness with bodhicitta in our heart. And the average is 7 lifetimes, 7 human lifetimes. Well, if that happens when your human lifetime is 80,000 years, 7 times that is kind of long. If it happens when your human life is 100 years long, 7 lifetimes, less than 700 years. Geshe always says about 500 years to Buddha appearing in the world. And we think, 500 years and some other Buddha is going to show up in the world. But what he has been sneakily planting seeds for us is like, no, 500 years and this Buddha will show up in whatever world it shows up in. It may or may not be this earth world. And it won't matter to that Buddha, will it? Because from their side, they're showing up everywhere. It's just whether the beings have the virtue to see them as Buddha versus a puppy dog versus a milkshake versus, right, whatever that being is being. It's all based on the accumulation of merit. And implied within that then is the removal of obstacles and removal of negativity. So purify, make merit is the mantra for the behavior that we do. And then Geshe said, remember Shanti Deva's teachings? Like, we haven't had them yet. But Master Shanti Deva was the one who said, one instant of anger directed at a bodhisattva will destroy your root of virtue. And then he goes on to say, and that root of virtue is an intermediate eon's worth of virtue. And now it's like an intermediate eon's worth. It's like, whoa, that's a really, really long time's worth of virtue. And then someone says, come on, if that were really true, no one would ever become a Buddha. Because everybody gets angry at somebody, and you don't know who is and who isn't a bodhisattva. So how could you ever break the cycle? How could you ever get ahead of the game? And so they say, yeah, technically you're right. It takes a specific kind of anger just directed at a bodhisattva, this strong anger with no regret and no doubt, and happy you did it, and forever you never reconsider and think, maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. So again, this healthy sense of regret helps protect even when we can't help it and we get angry. If very swiftly we're going, oh, there it is again, I regret it. It helps prevent this sustained anger, undoubted anger that can actually break our virtue and set us back that far. Okay, so when do Buddhas show up in the world? They say they show up during a Kalpa Sangpo. A Kalpa Sangpo is an eon of good fortune. Oh, I've got more there. Okay. So the eon of good fortune is the name of a time within the eon of continuation. So that continuation, when the lifespans are dropping, the eon of formation has ended, destruction hasn't started yet, lifespans are dropping, they hit 10, they come back up, they hit 80,000, they go back down, they hit 10, they go up. Somewhere in there is this eon called the eon of good fortune. And it's called that because somewhere within those 19 cycles, 1,000 Buddhas will appear to our world. He says, how do we know? Because Buddha Shakyamuni appeared and he was the third. I don't know that that's a proof, but it's kind of like, all right, so if they've promised us 1,000 and we've already had 3, right? There ought to be another 997 showing up soon, right within this time frame of lifespans, not soon by any way we know soon. But before we end up destroying things forever, not forever, but so permanently that we start into the eon of destruction. Okay. So the scripture says Buddhas do not appear while things are improving, while lifespans are increasing, because people are getting happier and happier, even within the suffering realm. So they're not interested in renunciation. They're not interested in searching for answers. Things are good and they're getting better. So there's no need for a Buddha. When things start to degenerate, people question and search. And when their suffering gets enough, it brings on renunciation. And that brings on their need for guidance. And that brings on a Buddha. So for any given individual, it often takes some kind of tragedy to make us question enough that we would be willing to change our behavior as a result of what we learn. It's not true for everyone that you have to have a disaster, but it's very common. But in this downswing, a Buddha does not occur once people's lifespans are going down from 100. Like at 100 and decreasing, Buddhas don't show up. I think I'm contradicting myself. Earlier, it sounded like I said they show up when we're at 100. But it's as we're approaching 100 that they show up. We're decreasing lifespans because our selfishness is increasing. Once we get at 100 and we're still going down, right? Too much suffering is happening. People are just trying to survive. And when we're in survival mode, we are not interested in our spiritual life. We're not interested in having to make moral choices about what I do to survive and to help my family survive. We want to do whatever we need to do to keep ourselves alive. So as we're at 100 and going lower, no Buddhas. As it's coming back up again, No Buddhas because things are getting better, 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 better. So somewhere in that drop, from 80,000 down to 100, there's enough suffering and enough goodness that beings draw a Buddha to their world. Now, again, if we're in lower school, there's a real Buddha somewhere, and they're waiting for the right time, watching us all to see when it's going to be, and then they show up. When we go from highest worldview, enough of us have a similar projection, a Buddha will show up in our world. So it can show up for some and not for others, but that's how it is, right? Not everybody saw that guy called Siddhartha become Buddha Shakyamuni. Maybe they heard people call him Buddha Shakyamuni and they even called him that. But for them, he's somebody's spiritual guide, but that message he says, nothing has any nature, you got to be kidding. Of course things have natures. You see, so just because there is a Buddha in our world doesn't mean everybody's going to see them that way. Same idea for us. So Geshe-la said back in the 1990s, we are close to one of those mini cycles of destroying our world and starting again. Within the eon of continuation, where lifespans are dropping, we're going to destroy ourselves in some way. Some beings are going to be left over. They'll mate other leftover beings. They'll get together and start to get more moral. And while that's on the rise, no, probably not Buddha until it gets up and comes down again. And it's like, well, that's a whole lot longer than 500 years before a Buddha will show up. Which, rather than discourage us, we could also hear that message and go, no, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I'm going to be the one, right, that brings that Buddha on sooner. Because how are we going to do it? Purify, make merit. Come to see yourself as Buddha. And then they might say, right, and when you do it, it will be because you and the beings who see you as that are at this stage in their eon of continuation where their goodness is such that they can see a Buddha. Right? That reality does not have a nature of being our reality like this that has to go through all of those cycles before we can have the goodness to see a Buddha walk amongst us. So why study this stuff? I don't know. Geshe Michael says, you want Tantra from him coming up? You don't need to know this. But you want to learn that Tantra in really fine detail? Guess what? You need to know this. So you're here. Do it now or do it later. I'm teasing. So unless this fascinates you, you do not have to spend hours and hours studying the eons of continuation to understand it precisely, because it really won't help other than to show us the emptiness of existence, the emptiness of time, the emptiness of how long it takes to become a Buddha. To motivate us, not to let ourselves get sloppy, to say somewhere in between, 3 countless great eons, which is an unfathomable period of time, and the end of this lifetime, I can do it. Yeah. Where does that leave us? So now there are 5 signs through which we can see that we are in the degeneration of times within our eon of continuation, meaning we're in that cycle where lifespans are decreasing. And here are the 5 different things that we can notice. The 5 are Se, Nyomon, Semchen, De, and Dawa. We're familiar with most of these words. Nyomon means mental affliction. Semchen means living being. Dawa means worldview. De means time. And Se, we learned means, well, we learned it was immeasurable, but here it's saying life. So one of the signs that indicates we're in degeneration times is that this term life means we know human life is fragile. So it must be that the humans whose lifetimes last 80,000 years, they must be pretty indestructible. No, or their circumstances are so extraordinary that if they have a fragile body, it never gets broken. But we have bodies that so easily get hurt, damaged, broken, dead. Like so many things can kill us. So little keeps us alive. We'll hear it again. The second factor, Nyongmong, it means mental afflictions or kleshas, right? A state of mind that interferes with our peace. But here it refers to a condition of our world where beings are uninterested in doing virtue. There's very little attraction to doing good deeds. This refers to in unordained people. Nyomo. Semchen, it does mean living beings, but here it's saying, look at the bodies. We just said our lifetime is fragile. Now it's saying here, the bodies of beings in degenerate times, they're not strong anymore. They're not well proportioned. They're not well coordinated. They're not such serviceable tools as they are when we're at those longer lifespans. So, you know, when I was a teen, my family was into sports and stuff, but we weren't really very good athletes. We had to work really hard to get competent, right? Enough to compete. And then we did okay. So we would water ski in the summer times, and we could take friends with us. And my brother, who's 1 year older than me, he had a buddy, a surfing buddy. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he came water skiing with us, and he'd never water skied before. And he saw all of us, you know, do a shore start. We just standing on the bank, you know, the boat hits it, you just step onto the water and off you go. And when you come back around and let go, you waltz your way in and end up knee deep in water. You don't even get wet, you know. And he watched us, each one, you know, and he goes, let me do that. And it's like, no, you have to learn to ski on 2 skis first, and then you'll drop one, and then you'll learn how to do a shore start. And he goes, no, you know, let me just try. All right, you know, stand like this, hold the ski like that, listen to the boat. When it accelerates, you step onto the water. You know, and we all thought, he's just going to wipe out, you know, because he'd never even skied on one ski before, let alone done a short start. Boom, steps, off he goes. And he's halfway around the lake and he's slaloming, and he's skiing as well as, my brothers who had skied for 10 years by then. Because this guy was just this natural athlete, well built, muscular, had this coordination. He could just see it and repeat it. Whereas the rest of us, oh man, we were just like flabbergasted. But this is what it reminds me of. Like some people really are that natural, what is it called? But I don't know, there's a body type, not an ounce of fat, coordinated, And in this degenerate times, there are fewer and fewer of us built like that. And more of us with bodies that aren't coordinated and can't, and it's not like you can diet and become one of those people or exercise and become one. We've got this certain degeneration in the quality of our bodies, right? This is Samchen, what they're talking about, an indication of the declining quality of lifespans. A result of ignorance and selfishness. Then de means time. But here it's code for the things that we need in order to keep our time in our life, meaning the shelter that we need, the food that we need, the water that we need, the clothing that we need, like what we need, what we think we need. And the things that we need get harder and harder to get. And even when we do get them, they have less and less quality. So for instance, food becomes less nutritious, water becomes less pure, less drinkable, medicines less effective, homes not safe. We see it happening already. I mean, we think, no, we have everything we need, and we do. But it used to be that foods had more minerals in them than they do now. And it's hard to believe, but apparently, when they test them, it really does seem to be that we're growing foods in a way that they don't have the capacity to nourish us like they used to. We saw that in the karmic correlations. Do you remember that course on karma and what the different correlations were from the 10 virtues, and how a number of them had to do with whether the crops lied to us, they looked right, but really they were rotten, or if we had done divisive things, we couldn't get the things we need, or from stealing, we can't get our needs met, right? It's like, this is consistent with lots of 10 non-virtues, like being the standard operating procedure. So not even making decisions, virtue or not. And then Dawa is the last one, worldview. And this refers to a period in the world where the whole population has degenerated to a point where even the ordained people are no longer acting virtuously. So they take their ordination for whatever reason, but either what's included in their ordination is not vowed behavior, or even if it is, they're not capable of following it. So when everybody is not interested in virtue, like so struggling for survival, that you're in, me and my family first mode, this is a sign of the degenerate times. And then of course it's going to degenerate times even more. because of what we do as a result, thinking that it's normal, expected behavior, even thinking it's good, right? To steal from your neighbor in order to feed your family. Okay. Mm. So as these 5 degenerations grow, get worse, lifespans decrease further and further. They are why lifespans decrease. And part of that, no one interested in virtue, means that no one's interested in the Dharma. And then a pattern or a sequence starts where, because of the abundance of non-virtue, out of not understanding, of course, the first of the Dharma that dies out is the realizations. Like, no one's getting direct experiences of the different lums, especially direct perception of emptiness. The realizations are getting harder and harder, and then not possible. To study, but just not get any direct experience of any of it. Then at that point, oh wait, what's he say here? At some point, then people stop trying. And then when they stop trying, they stop studying. And when they stop studying, they lose interest in the books. And when they lose interest in the books, they get stored away in some basement somewhere, and everybody forgets what they are, where they are, what they are. And then, if anybody even comes across them, very likely they're not readable because they're in some other language. And so they're meaningless. And so either they get destroyed or just shoved back into the corner of the basement. And then that whole world goes on to get destroyed, and so do the books. So we've heard that the Buddha Dharma will come to an end. Does the wisdom end? No, of course not. If there's any Buddha, the wisdom goes on. But our Buddha's Dharma will disappear in the world because we won't have the virtue to be interested. So are we out of luck? That in this lifetime, the amount of time we have to actually do any effort is a speck compared to the 3 countless great eons that it's taking us. And Geshe-la said that's why Buddha taught Tantra. Some people believe that Tantra is some perverted practices. Some people have a little bit more understanding of Tantra, and they believe it's some long prayer that you commit yourself to reciting day in and day out. Some understand a little bit more, and they believe it has to do with these solitary retreats that you commit yourself to do again and again. when we are well trained, we understand that it's about the vows that we receive when we receive our tantric initiation, and that keeping those vows and commitments is the virtue necessary to bring this transformation within the lifetime that you see emptiness directly from a tantric practice, So they're not promising the lifetime you get your initiation, you will reach Buddha. What they're promising is that if you use your practices, keep your vows, reach that direct perception of the clear light, from that moment on, you will reach your Buddhahood before this body dies. So, however, that may or may not mean that, oh, if that happens to me when I'm 95 years old, right, and I die when I'm 98, I reached my Buddhahood in the next 2 years. What it's very likely to mean is that the practices that you will do, you will experience what we would have called dying in such a different way that you don't die at 95, you continue your practices. Now, what the beings around you experience, that's up to their karma. But your own mind has shifted so much by way of keeping your tantric vow behavior that once you experience even the approximate clear light, you will not ever stop your path until you reach Buddhahood. So it's the advertisement, right? To do what you need to do to get on your diamond way path. And, the timing is beautiful coming from you to have this doorway of opportunity to get there sooner than what we had anticipated, and then to decide how deep you want to go into that practice after that. Okay. Okay. So how do we prepare ourselves for receiving Diamond Way, right? We have the specifics now from Geshe Michael. Study our Lam Rim. Put what we learn into practice in daily life. Meditate regularly, seriously. Serve your Lama, serve your parents, serve the needy, serve your Dharma center, your 4 most powerful karmic objects. And then Geshe says there will come a crucial time when you have the opportunity to leap. And he says, leap. When we are well prepared karmically, the leap won't be a leap, right? It'll be a step, it'll be a dance, you won't even recognize it as a leap. But if we're saying to our own heart, our own mind, I'm willing to leap. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do. This suffering is enough. Seems to be getting worse. That's what brings this opportunity for this huge, huge shift. So apparently, Ken Rinpoche was preparing a group for the initiations. He used to give initiation every summer. And if you wanted, you would call him or you go see him and ask. And he would check on your background and, probably he's looking into you, your subtle body and checking you out. And he often would say, come to my Lumrim program beforehand. So, 3 or 4 weekends before initiation, you'd go and study the Lumrim again. And then he would give the highest yoga tantra over 2 weekends, with the Vajrayogini blessing. And apparently he was preparing some group of students, and one student said, well, look, you're going to give us vows, these special high vows. And, we've heard that those vows are so hard to keep that we all know we're going to break them. So, like, what's up with this system that you give us vows that we can't keep in the promise that if we keep them, we make this transformation? And apparently Ken Rinpoche said with a perfectly straight face, like in all seriousness, he said, yes, we're all going to a hell realm anyway. But when you get there, you'll be able to say, I am in a hell realm because I didn't keep my tantric vows well. I'm not here the way you guys are here. And it's like, I don't get that still, to be honest with you. Geshe-la's point was Rinpoche was not being funny. There's something significant in knowing that that effort to keep the vows, to do our 4 powers appropriately when we don't keep them well, to keep getting back on the horse, right, is the practice. Like, if we could get our tantric vows and keep them perfectly, we would all be Buddhas by now. It's not the keeping them perfectly that does the trick. It's the trying and fixing. It's the failing and trying again that burns off the negative and plants the positive, necessary to pull off this transformation. Okay. That's class 8. Phew. I'm stopping the share. Please do your homework. Don't put it off, or we won't get to it, because this is just so disinteresting and dry. Make yourself do it, please. And the next 2 classes are the death meditation that we've learned it already, I think, but we revisit it because it's pertinent, right? Where we're left with, I have this precious opportunity now even to have heard a class like this is extraordinary. And, how much time do we have? How much time do we think we have? And how much time do we really have? Right. So to learn a proper death meditation is not what's going to happen when we die. It's a proper meditation on how to live today as if we'll die tonight, which plants the seeds actually for not dying tonight. And then we behave as if we're going to die the next night, and then check and see whether we did. So it's a powerful practice to revisit from time to time, even when we're like so sure, I understand, I'm prepared to die if it happens tomorrow. And it's like, no, let's go back and look again. Yeah. And so that would be, how we're doing the practice modules, 3 days, learn the practice, and then 6 days, dig in deeply. We've done one so far. We're going to do another one this summer and another one, well, not quite. Yeah, another one in January. This would be another one that even if we've done it before, to be able to do an intensive meditation together would be take us to deeper insights about it. All right. Cashua says I shouldn't waste a minute, but I'm going to put those extra minutes in the bank because I need them for later and let you all get your rest. So remember that being we wanted to be able to help. We've learned something that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. They are delighted that you heard this material because so few people do. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, and then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it, and they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with wisdom, filled with love and kindness. And may it be so. All right. Thank you so much. The recording.